So somebody, while this is getting started up, somebody remind me again, what does it mean to do high mix manufacturing? I think on the quiz, everybody got this question right. So whatever you think it is probably correct.
So like a job shop that makes lots of different parts in varying shapes and sizes.
So job shops tend to do high mix manufacturing. That's for sure. Let's change camera.
It would be like if you're doing screwdrivers about if it's like you got an order for 1,000 screwdrivers one week and then like 200 or 2,000 rubber duckies the next.
Yeah. So a job shop.
Even though a job shop might not do screwdrivers and rubber duckies.
Well, you know what? I know a job shop in Massachusetts that makes handles or makes the blade part of the screwdrivers, and then the handles are overmolded on those things. So I know a job shop in Massachusetts that makes screwdrivers for Stanley. So yes, job shops might make screwdrivers. So a job shop is typically a lower tiered manufacturing company. So the tiers, again, if you're tier one, that means the stuff that you make sells directly to a consumer. If you're tier two, that means you supply components that go to the tier one manufacturer who does the stuff that goes directly to the consumer. So people like Apple is a tier one company. Foxconn, that makes the what do they call them, the things that the phone guts go inside, the phone body.
Yeah.
Foxconn, and I think Foxconn does a lot of the assembly now too, but that company started just to make the machine bodies for the first iPhones. So Foxconn is a tier two company because they don't sell direct. Well, they don't legally sell directly to the consumer. I don't know about the black market. Maybe they do. But and so you can get down there, and there's companies that supply stuff to the companies that supply stuff to the companies that supply stuff. You could be like tier 14. Now, the company itself isn't necessarily tier 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's the role that they're doing at that time, right? So I could have a product that I sell directly to consumers, and I could make stuff for Ford that they put in their cars that they then sell directly to consumers. So it's that job. You're acting as a tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3. But
So it's like the
job shop tends to make lots of different things for lots of different customers, but the customers tend to be other businesses that are going to use those things as part of their manufacturing process. So that's a job shop. You don't have to be a job shop to do high mix manufacturing. You could be a manufacturer that sells directly to consumers and have a lot of different parts that you don't keep them in stock. So why wouldn't you want to keep your parts in stock?
Because that's just space that you're not using for more.
Right, warehousing has cost, right? So there's cost associated with storing the stuff. If you're storing it and then nobody wants to buy it, it becomes scrap eventually. If you're storing it and somebody steals it, it
lost profits.
So I had a job when I was a WPI student. I needed to make, actually my final year at WPI, I needed to make all the money to pay my tuition plus my housing and all of that. So I worked 40 hours a week at a company while going to school at WPI. And I worked at a company that made plastic junk. If you've ever been to a Walmart and you walk down the aisle of like plastic office supplies, you've seen the stuff that we made.
Okay.
If you walk down the aisle, you know, there's like, everybody likes to have milk crates to put their stuff in, especially college students, because it's easy to move them around.
Yes.
And you can get the milk crates that come from the milk company,
which are good milk crates.
Right. And it's also like against the law for you to have them. Well, I don't know. It's like theft for you to take them.
Yeah.
If only if you get caught.
It's only theft. Yeah, it's only theft if you get caught.
It's only theft if you. Now, I'm pretty sure it's theft whether you get caught or not. It's possible you only get punished if you get caught. But anyway, so you've seen the knockoff version of those that you get at Walmart.
That lasts for like a month.
We made those, and I would fill. My job. I was again in the warehouse that drove the forklift. My job was to fill tractor trailers with those crappy milk crate things that you could buy at Walmart. And we would send tractor trailer after tractor trailer to Walmart's with those milk crate things. So I know it was a big seller. I can almost remember the part number. It was 70 something, like 7024, 7026 was like the part number for that thing. Wow, the things you remember. That is a bit of useless information. Anyway, so
I have a question about
year. I worked there for many years. My senior year, I became the warehouse supervisor for a remote warehouse. I got the job because they had just done an internal audit and they had found that $3 million worth of product was missing from that warehouse, and they fired the previous guy. $3 million worth of plastic crap stolen out the back door of the warehouse.
How?
Well, say the Walmart truck driver would show up and he had an order that would fill half of his trailer. He would walk around and pick up stuff and fill up the rest of his trailer before he pulled out. You know, with the knowledge of the people running the warehouse. And then he would stop at home maybe to unload that stuff, and his wife would go sell it at the flea market or wherever. I don't know how it was valuable to the people that stole it, but that was the easiest way to do it. Or hey, back up a tractor trailer, walk in the warehouse and fill it up and just leave with no paperwork. It was possible if the people managing the warehouse weren't paying attention. So anyway, where did that get us?
Wait, before you go on, how do you get certified to drive a...
Expensive. That was my point. Go ahead.
How do you...
Question.
How do you get certified to drive a forklift?
When I did it,
You got to get a hoisting license.
You worked for to issue the license. And I watched a 20-minute video.
Nice.
That sounds like enough.
Now I believe
now you have to take a test.
Standardized written test or something that you have to take in the state of Massachusetts. But my forklift license was issued by the company that I worked for, and I had to watch a 20-minute video, which is way more certification than I ever got when I was a bucket loader operator for a construction company. Because when I was a bucket loader operator for a construction company, the boss says, "Hey, Toby, do you know how to drive that thing?" I said, "I think I can figure it out." He says, "Okay, get it out of the way. It's in the way." And I went and I got it out of the way. He said, "Hey, move that pile of dirt." And then I moved the pile of dirt. And he says, "Hey, tomorrow when you come in, just run that." So
who's in charge of like making part numbers?
who's in charge of making part numbers? Whoever wants to.
Yeah.
As the designer, will put a part number on my part because I want to keep track of which part it is. You as the manufacturer will assign a part number to the part that I gave you to make, because if I ever ask you to make that part again, you want to be able to go look up all the information you saved about how you made it the first time. The company that's selling it, if it's going through like a distributor, they may make up their own part number. So yeah, part numbers are randomly generated, not like the numbers on the back of a book, right? So the ISBN number on the back of your book, that is a standards organization that creates those numbers. You have to buy them and all that stuff. But part numbers for products, anybody can make those up. All right. I was at the point of inventory is expensive. So you might be a high mix manufacturer, even if you own all the products, if you're the tier 1 manufacturer, but you don't want to keep any of them in stock. You want to make them once they get ordered. Okay, but typically the ones that we see are operating at some level like a job shop, and a job shop usually has a business to business market. So they're selling parts to other companies. Those parts were designed by engineers. The engineers sent the designs to the manufacturers. So this isn't where the company that's doing the manufacturing has designed the part and is trying to figure out the customer needs. That's all on the design company. So high mix manufacturing. So if I'm a job shop and I make money by getting orders from your company for components that go in stuff that you're making and selling to your customers, how does this company make money? What are the things that they have to do to make money?
Add like a 20%.
If you were designing a company like this and you were going to say, all right, I'm going to have 3 or 4. So I'm gonna be the CEO because that's a cool job title to have. But I'm gonna be the CEO, and we're gonna have a president. My business partner is gonna be the president, and then we're gonna have some vice presidents that report to us that do all the work. Because it'd be cool to not have to do all the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
All right, so we're gonna have some vice presidents that report to us that do all the work, and then there's gonna be people that report to them, departments that report to these vice presidents. What are the departments that a job shop needs to have?
Human resources.
Okay, maybe we need HR.
Shipping and receiving.
We need shipping and receiving. So that's a function that we need to do. So
Inventory.
shipping and receiving. I'm going to guess that shipping and receiving doesn't have its own vice president level. I'm going to guess that that falls in another department.
Operations.
I'm going to say that shipping and receiving falls under operations.
Material storage.
So you mean like warehousing of inventory or warehousing of raw material?
Both. It's
Both,
mostly
okay.
raw material.
That's fair. So I would say that the act of warehousing, so keeping track of where it is and putting it in the spot where it is and taking it out of the spot where it is, I'm going to say that still falls under operations. That's an active doing something.
Inventory.
The warehouse space itself is the facility. So we might have a facilities management.
What about like a department where
Facilities might fall under operations, it might not.
like a department where it's like, okay, if one of the machines breaks, go fix it.
So facilities and maintenance.
That's the word.
So I would say facilities and maintenance. Facilities and maintenance might fall under operations. It might be its own separate thing. It depends on how you decide to structure it. But it's a big thing.
Don't you also need quality assurance?
What's that?
Don't you also need like quality assurance, like
We
quality
need
checks as well?
quality assurance.
You need manpower.
Yeah, the manpower, so the labor part of it, those people usually, well, most of them work for operations. So the people will work for a department. So we've got facilities and maintenance, we've got operations, we've got quality assurance. And again, both of these actually might fall under operations. It depends on how many upper management people we want to have called vice president. If it was WPI, for example, there'd be 17 departments because I think we have 17 vice presidents at WPI right now.
Wow.
It might be only 16. I think they may have laid one off.
Do we need a sales department or somebody to capture like jobs?
I think that's HR. HR should fulfill that role.
Do we need like accountants, like financial department with budget and stuff?
To finances, accounting. Yeah. What the heck do we call that? Is there a different word?
Treasury, something like that.
Accounting.
Now, accounting, the action of accounting, the person in charge of that might be called the chief financial officer or something like that. So yeah, finance, accounting. So we're going to do finance and accounting. We're going to do facilities maintenance. We're going to do operations, quality assurance. You want a VP of engineering? You guys all plan to be engineers, right?
Wait, you need a VP of engineering?
I want to be the VP of engineering.
I thought you were the CEO.
Well, if I couldn't be well, hey, you don't this could be a small company.
But you said the CEO doesn't want to do any work.
Yeah, earlier you said the CEO doesn't want to do any work.
Of the company. We'll talk about that, especially as we talk about the second group project, which I sort of introduced way back way back when, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the lecture today. Job shop. So we have facilities maintenance, operations, quality assurance, finance and accounting, engineering. I think the big one that we have missed, and I'll just go ahead and put it up here so we can move on, is sales and marketing.
I thought that was what HR was for.
Yeah, sales was already said.
Yeah, sales is already said.
HR is about hiring our employees, making sure that we pay all the taxes that we have to pay, and making sure that we withhold all the taxes from our employees, making sure that if employees need training, making sure that we get them access to that training. If employees need to be disciplined or fired, making sure that we keep track of that so that we can not be accused of discrimination in the future by haphazardly disciplining and firing people. So yeah, these are the human resources. What a stupid name for a department. WPI doesn't call it human resources. Anybody know what WPI calls it?
Office of Talent and Inclusion or something like that.
Yeah. They call it the Office of Talent and Inclusion. I'm not sure that's a better name than human resources, but it doesn't at least assume that the employees have the same value as the furniture, right? Furniture is a resource. Employees are a resource, but the employees have way more value than the furniture. In fact, I would say that no matter what type of company you have, the most valuable resource your company has is the people that go home every day at 5 o'clock.
What about a furniture company?
What's that?
What about a furniture company?
The most valuable resource a furniture company has are the
Still the people.
that makes the furniture and the people that sell the furniture, and those are people. In fact, sales ranks pretty high up there. If the salespeople get paid on commission, there is no such thing as an overpaid salesperson. And in small companies, the salespeople tend to make more than the CEO.
Because they're the ones bringing in all the jobs.
They're the ones that bring in all the money that pays everybody else. But all right, so we've got sales and marketing, we've got engineering, we've got accounting and finance, we've got facilities maintenance, quality assurance, operations. I'm going to just call this all one thing. Some people might include sales and marketing as part of operations because you can't really run the company without having sales and marketing. Most people would have sales and marketing be part of finance and accounting, and they would report to that person. Engineering, HR, R&D. Engineering might go into operations. How do engineers add value at a job shop?
If it's like, R&D, like developing, hey, let's try to integrate some robotics into this, like make it
They
more
designed
efficient.
the machines.
Say again, something about machines?
They designed the machines.
They design the machine. So yeah, if we need to make a special machine in order to make the parts which the customer wants, we definitely need engineering to do that. Does the customer care?
No.
Not unless that they're buying machines.
Right. Then it would be like Haas.
So the engineers at most companies are considered cost centers. Engineers tend to add cost to the parts, not add values to the parts. There's a notable exception when the engineers add value to the company, or the things the engineers do add value. Anybody want to know what that? Anybody know what that is?
Doing the inspections.
No, inspection hardly ever adds value unless the customer is willing to pay extra for the inspection report, or unless you can't possibly sell the product without an inspection report. It adds cost. It may be necessary cost, but it adds cost. Engineers add value when the thing the company sells is engineering. So if you're an engineering consulting company, engineers are value centers for your company. If you're a manufacturing company, engineers add cost to the things. It's a necessary expense. I'm not saying we shouldn't have engineers, but the accountants, the people in this group, will tend to see engineers as adding cost to the company, not adding value to the company. Intrinsically, they add tons of value, but we like to count things that we can put in columns and spreadsheets. And it's hard to put goodwill and knowledge in a column and a spreadsheet. All right, but we might have 3 or 4 departments then, right? So we might have this accounting and finance, sales and marketing, this operations that includes facilities, quality assurance. It includes production too, right? And shipping and receiving. It may include engineering. Engineering may be held separate in a different department, and we get this human resources, which may be underneath the finance and accounting people. So, but these are the actions, these are the things that we have to do if we want to make money at a job shop. We got to do all those activities. We don't necessarily have to have different people doing them, but we have to fill those functions. All right. So how do we add value? So I said cost and value. All of those things that we showed there have some cost associated. Where does
Yes, sir, I have a
value come
question.
from in high mix manufacturing?
I have a question. So
Go ahead.
I remember last year in economics, we studied the difference between like economic profit and accounting profit. And economic profit is basically a sort of like opportunity cost. So if a company doesn't do a certain action, then they'll lose the opportunity of gaining a certain amount of like.
So yeah, there are
because they didn't.
There are words. So there are things like opportunity cost. And it's things that you have, and so opportunity cost is a very slippery thing, and a lot of people will consider it to be real money, when in fact, if the cost of opportunity, let's see. So I was running my own company when I decided to become an engineer, when I decided to start teaching at WPI. I couldn't do both well, or I hadn't figured out how to do both well. And so I basically shut down my operations at my own company in order to start teaching at WPI. So I had that income from my company, and the opportunity cost of taking the job at WPI was the loss of the other income. So the thing you had to weigh there was, would the salary and the benefits from having a job at WPI outweigh the revenue that I was making running that company? So that's one way to look at opportunity cost. There's another thing is, all right, so say we get a request from a potential customer to make these parts. And they want to know what's the cost of making these parts. And we decide that we're not going to bid on this part. We decide we don't want to make these parts. So we give up the opportunity to make the money that we would have made if we made these parts. That's another way to look at opportunity cost. So that is something that certainly upper management needs to be conscious of when we're doing all these things. But what I'm thinking about here in this lecture really is the intrinsic value and the measurable, easy to measure costs. Opportunity cost is certainly important. So how do job shops create value?
So the faster to finish the faster to finish a deal, the more money you can potentially earn. If we assume.
So it's about, can you make the parts in a shorter amount of time? Is that what you're saying, basically?
Yeah, if you assume the job are keep coming.
So because time equals money, right? We've heard that.
Yeah.
So when we say time equals money, often we're thinking about cost, right? The longer it takes to do something, the more hours I have to pay my employees, the higher the cost to make it. There is certainly opportunity cost with failing to deliver the parts on time. So
Which would be
you may
negative.
make the most perfect parts and never be able to get paid for them because you were late on delivery. And so that would be opportunity cost. I think time, the value could be associated with time. And I see this, I see this with projects at WPI a lot, is there's a date after which finishing making your parts, finishing making your project no longer has any value. If you're working on your MQP, what is that date this year?
Graduation.
No, it's before graduation.
The end of.
You have 3.
It's the date that your ECDR is due for your MQP, which is a few weeks into the term following, or if it's D term, it's in the middle of D term sometime, right? Because finishing your project after you have to have submitted all the information to the registrar isn't going to make your project any better. But yeah, so what is it that the customers value that the job shops provide them?
Their ability to change from part to part quickly and easily.
They probably don't. So again, there's cost. So part changeover time. That has to do with cost again too. What the customer values is quality, right? They value getting what they need when they need it. And so the when gives us the opportunity cost here. So, but this is what they value. They value getting the thing that they asked for. If you're a job shop, the typical flow here, whether it's a new customer or it's an existing customer, the typical flow is the customer says, I need to make these parts. I have a design for them. I want to find out how much they cost. So the typical flow is request for quote. So the customer will ask for a quote for the part that needs to be made. How much? So should the quote be the cost of making the part?
No, it should be a little more because you need to profit.
If
Right,
they're
so
a friend, maybe.
The price, so this is a price.
No, if they're a friend, you still charge them.
This is a price. The price includes the cost to make the part plus the margin. And so what's the margin also equal to?
Your profit margin.
So it's the profit, right? This is the profit. Why do we need to have a profit?
Because what's the point of making this if you're not making any money, if you're in the business of business?
Well, we need to have a profit to ensure that the company continues to exist, right?
You gotta
if
pay all
we're
those
only doing
engineers.
One thing, we don't actually need to have a profit. We could just break even. But if we want the company to continue, we're going to want to have a profit so we can continue growing and all that stuff, right? All right. So first thing is the RFQ. Then a purchase order. What's the purchase order? It's a contract to deliver the parts when they're needed. So the contract to deliver the parts when they're needed to the customer so this contract will refer to the drawing from the RFQ. It may refer, I guess before the between the RFQ and the purchase order, of course, is the quote. That's when we tell them how much it's going to cost. Then they issue a purchase order. And the contract will refer back to the quote that we gave them, where we told them how much we're going to charge them. It will refer back to the RFQ, which contains the drawings and all the specifications for the parts that we quoted. And it will include a delivery date. What happens when you can't deliver on time?
You then breach that contract.
And what happens then?
A new contract needs to be made, or if it's
sometimes nothing happens. You deliver the parts when you can, you still get paid. Sometimes if you don't deliver the parts on time, they refuse delivery and you don't get paid. Sometimes if you don't deliver the parts on time, they accept the delivery and you don't get paid. Who wins in those situations?
not you.
The lawyers.
Nobody.
Yeah, I was going to say whoever can afford the most lawyers, but yeah. So you want to avoid those situations, right? But you've got a RFQ, a quote, a purchase order. What's the next step?
To the machine.
They want their parts, right?
To the like the line.
So what's the next step?
Production line.
Is production. What do we have to do the production?
Modify stock material.
Let's say it's a simple part. Let's say it's the Y block for your Stirling engine.
You need stock.
So you need stock.
Do we make a prototype to see if they like exactly what we made?
We may do a first article and send it to them for approval before we move forward. Typically, that would be a separate line item in the purchase order or a separate purchase order altogether. So let's assume that they believe we can make the parts and we believe we can make the parts. So we're not doing anything special. But yeah, sometimes, especially if it's a very complex part, if it's something that's never been made before, you'll do a special purchase order to make the prototype or to make a first article to prove that you actually can make the parts. But let's just assume that we know how to make the parts and everybody believes we know how to make the parts. So we've got production. We need stock. What else do we need to make the part?
The machine.
We need a machine tool.
Tooling.
We need the tooling.
Manpower.
Yeah, so we need power and all that stuff.
The time to
Power,
make the
we need the
parts.
facility, we need the insurance, we need all that stuff. I'm going to just say, how about we call that overhead? Stock, machine tool, tooling, overhead, fixturing, engineering. So the engineering will consider that to be like the programming for the machine, maybe designing the fixtures, anything like that. I have a visitor. You're not actually on the camera, but that's okay. Stock, machine tool, tooling, overhead, fixturing, engineering. Is that good? Let's do the inspection in here in production. Let's do the packaging in here. All right, so we've done production. We've got our stock material, we've got our machine tool, our tooling, we've paid overhead for all the facilities and all that stuff. We've got our fixturing, we've got our engineering done, we've got our inspection done, we've got our packaging done. What's the next step?
Shipping and handling.
Shipping. It's easy. We just use FedEx or UPS or our truck and deliver it. So shipping. What's next?
Money day. Day we get paid. Yeah.
Which one do you get paid for?
What?
Which one do you get paid for?
You get paid for the delivery of the part.
You get paid for sending the invoice. If you do all the other steps and you never send the invoice, you'll never get paid.
So you send the invoice first?
Wouldn't that be nice? Now, when the customer first contacts you and asks you for a quote, what do they want?
They want to see how much it will cost them to get this part made.
Is that really what they want?
No.
They want a
Yes.
cheap price.
Is that really what they want?
They want
I
a
don't-
reasonable
The
price.
They want it to be cheap.
They want the product.
What they want is they want their part. They don't want a price. They don't want a quote and a purchase order. They don't want all the time that this takes. They don't want an invoice. They want the part. When the customer asks you for the quote, yes, they're asking for a quote because they know that this is the procedure to get their part. But what they want is their part. So that's something to remember in this process too. So you get paid after you've made the parts, after you've shipped the parts, after you've sent the invoice, and you get paid if you delivered the parts on time and the customer accepts the delivery. Because the customer could receive your package, look at it and say, this isn't what I wanted the parts to look like. You didn't fulfill the contract. I can't pay you. Right? So the manufacturing company, especially the job shop, has uncertainty through all, actually, it's even after the invoice, you have uncertainty here through the whole process.
That's a terrifying business model right there.
How much does it cost? How much does the machine tool cost? Anybody know?
A
Like
lot.
a Haas mini mill?
50 grand maybe?
Too much.
The new Haas mini mill that we have in Washburn 108 that we bought a couple years ago, the Haas Super Mini Mill, we paid just about $60,000 for. That was with the educational discount price. The Haas mini mills that you guys have been using, which we bought in 2001, I think they were about 40,000 each in 2001. How much? So overhead. I made this cute little box here for overhead. Overhead is the facility where you are, the power and lights and plumbing and the water and sewer charges, the insurance that you have to pay, the salary for all of the people that are not actually doing the machining part. No, we forgot to put in machining. I guess it was implied, right? There's a lot of risk in doing this, right? Okay. But, which is why the profit here. We talked about profit when we were in the quote, right? The profit should be something. What do you think the typical profit is for a job shop?
20%.
Say again?
20%.
Anybody else? If you're doing 20 or 30%, you're doing pretty good. Okay, so what time is it? Am I running late? I haven't been looking at the clock. I'm close.
We have 4 minutes.
Okay, so for the second group project, and we're gonna have this is gonna be due at the end of the term. What we're gonna do is we're gonna examine how much it actually costs us if we wanted to create from scratch a startup company that could make the ME 1800 Sterling engines and sell them at a profit. And so we're going to have to consider, so there's
do we get the machine?
What do I have? RFQ. All right. So before we even did the RFQ, the potential customer had to know that we even existed, right? So even before all that, in the overhead, we had to do some marketing. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at, if you decided, hey, people are going to buy this part, you've got a couple of different choices. You could get all the designs and send the designs out to a bunch of different job shops, get quotes for making the parts, and then have even hire one of those job shops to do the final assembly and ship it to your customers. You could do that, or
to do everything in-house.
You could decide that you're going to create a company from scratch in order to build the part that you designed. So what the exercise we're going to do is we're going to look at the cost to build the company from scratch to create the part that we've designed. The part's going to be the ME 1800 Sterling engine. And we're going to assume that we can sell a certain volume of them at a certain price point. And then we're going to have you guys go through the exercise of figuring out how much do the machine tools cost? How many machine tools should I buy? How many staff members should I hire? And go through that exercise. Is there another way that if you were the designer, you could make money from having designed this ME 1800 Sterling engine that you believe people are going to buy?
Do the manufacturing in China.
That's outsourcing it. That's going to a job shop.
You can sell the design.
You could license your design to somebody that's going to make it, right? So that's really the three ways to take your intellectual property of your design and turn it into a physical part that the customer has. You could create a virtual company that has all the work done by other people, and maybe you do the sales and marketing part. You could license the design to a manufacturing company that just makes parts. Or you could build a company from the ground up to create that part. And so our class project is going to be to build the company from the ground up to make that part. For next Tuesday, right? So next Tuesday is our next lecture. We're going to be talking about economics. We're going to be talking about large company economics as opposed, or not large company, but mass production kind of economics instead of high mix economics next time. But for next Tuesday, have a short meeting with your group and can make a list of questions that you want to ask in order to figure out what it is. So make a list of the things you need to know in order to start designing this company. So we can have that discussion next Tuesday. And then we'll also talk about the differences between high mix manufacturing and mass production manufacturing. I think the other things we talk about next week are automation and the future of manufacturing, or people like to call it advanced manufacturing. But we're going to talk about future trends in manufacturing, where we think this is going. But a lot of time next week we'll spend talking about this idea of building a company to create a product that we have designed and we think that the world will buy. All right. Okay, sounds good. I'll stay on the line if there are people that have questions. I'll go ahead and stop the live stream. If I can find the button that stops the live stream.